Alright guys, here's a little update on my personal life, and of course this is still my first take, so obviously I'm doing pretty good. So a little update on where I'm headed, where the ministry is headed, a couple of insight information into my marketing vision that I have been downloaded with me. So our site is still ongoing with information. We have two possible new staff members for the site upcoming. But just so y'all know, there's some information in the blog that is really in detailed elaboration for my whole background on the beginning of this underground ministry. But Lord is doing a great pneumatological work here on the plateau of Sand Mountain in this region of Alabama of the United States. And so basically where I'm headed right now after this wonderful Sunday is it all started with a video by Brandon Heath. It was an inspiration that he has had for a song that was entitled "Leaving Eden," and I'm not exactly sure on if they would enjoy for me to expound on how this place has really been in my life, but and just the thought of, I mean, because today's Sunday and it's a public government property, but I hope they don't mind. But if they do, I'll just take off everything that pretty much that has been on here. But anyhow, it's entitled "Leaving Eden," and he even has the explanation of the whole inspiration for the video right here. But as you can see in the background, I'm at pretty much what I define as home. I've had a quite rough history in this place, but yet simultaneously nobody knew exactly what was going on with me personally. And though most people might think it is not common, this mental condition is quite common, is from what I've come to notice, that more and more people are coming out with this actual diagnosis for the eccentric social behavior that most of us have exhibited. But just so y'all kind of get a catch on how I've heard this mental voice that has really been nagging me to return to this Eden. And so I kept dreaming, it's no joke, of this whole campus, this property specifically. And as a dreamer, yes, I've had numerous dreams that I cannot even discuss right now, politically, eschatologically, concerning America and other politicians that I probably cannot mention. But anyways, so dreams. So I was a child. I don't recall the exact age that I was, but I guess it was right around I got quote saved at Vacation Bible School at Asbury Methodist Church in Fort Payne. But somewhere around during that time, I might have even been 6. But I remember in my rapid eye movement stage of sleep, I guess was what it was, I had viewed and yes, all this spiritual stuff has really taken a toll on me in my moments of ignorance. But just so y'all are aware, I was getting a feel for the real, as Jensen Franklin was constantly preaching about. So not preaching, but writing about in his one of my other favorite reputable books on spirituality and discerning God's voice is Right People, Right Place, Right Plan. Discerning the voice of God. And he talks about counterfeit money, the not of God, all this other kind of juicy stuff as far as pneumatology and you know, this actual spiritual factual voice. So in this dream of mine, I remember seeing a white SUV skidding to the edge of a cliff. Then I had seen my mother underground, not underground, but underwater, and she was crying in tears of joy. But what I've now come to realize the interpretation was the affair that has been ignited in my family at age 12, which initiated the divorce. So obviously this white color, this white pigment that was reflecting up on this SUV symbolizing a family was pretty much, it was a pure family. It was a whole family. It was untouched and undefiled. And yet once it skid off the edge of that cliff, my mother had received the fullness, the Rhema washing of the Holy Word in her own spiritual baptism, so to speak. And there is, of course, numerous instances where water submersion, which is symbolic to the public. There is baptism with fire, baptism in the Spirit, baptism into the body of Christ at the moment of salvation. Robert Morris explains all of that. But what I've recently learned from Eider Church of God a few years back with Reverend Jonathan Lambert. I hope you don't mind if I reference you, but it's just, I just get so excited at what all God is doing. I hope nobody is offended by any names, but there has been some people that has been in bitterness at how exalting in the exaltation of my personal life and the things. I hope there is no tension between you guys, and I love all of you. I just wanted to apologize for all of that you wanted me to take down on the blog, but it's what God is doing in my life, and it's so personal to me, and I'm just expressing how I feel, expressing the love of my Creator, the facts and information and truth I've really received. But this beloved bishop that has been in the Church of God, he has shown us that there is also a baptism of blood, and now that gets into a whole different rabbit trail once again. My sincere apologies for all of this. This is just a spur of the moment that had kind of popped into my mind. So yes, the blood baptism was the one the Messiah had spoke of in red letters. Are you worthy to take of the cup that I have received? And he was talking about these two boys that this woman had approached him with and asked him to sit on his right hand side and his left hand side. So he basically was referring to the crucifixion and this blood baptism. So anyhow, so that's where the whole dream is. Okay, now this specific location is where exactly I have been dreaming about so continuously, like 10,000 times, pretty much. Exaggeration intended for deliberate emphasis, but you guys pretty much get the gist of what all has been going on and what he was trying to speak to me about. So, unfortunately, I cannot disclose any information as regards to the name of this geographical location, but pretty much I just wanted to inform y'all on childhood. That is explained in the heroes discussion part, but just where I've been led to personally is this study of the innocence and the purity of a child, and how we all are to return to all of our Edens, our place of innocence, and how we truly correlated with life and with reality and with the metaphysics, the philosophy of just being so young and so innocent and so loving and so caring to not only ourselves, not only to our parents, our brothers or sisters, but each other as humanity. And so what God has exposed me in truth, through different ministries that are kind of, you know, bridging the gap between all of this misinterpretation of facts, scientific information, epistemology, abductive, deductive, and inductive reasoning, and all of the like as to regards of astronomy, biology, genetics, Darwinism, everything that has been propagated. Also, I have another blog concerning reputable sources and media, and well, just to put this out there, not many people realize that Fox News is actually owned by Arabs. So that you've got to dissect all of the information. And just for the college students out there, I've come to realize, as far as education standards go, just a food for thought on the collection of knowledge, the collection of facts, the understanding, the intelligence of placing those facts in chronological order, and also the wisdom, how to be able to apply the previous two by personal experience. Concerning all of this, who's to say concerning, I know it's a government issue, and I know universities profit off of all of these credentials concerning modern society and economics, but once you get down to it and think about it, I personally love the traditional education standards as far as high school goes, but let's think of it this way. Albert Einstein had once quoted, "Everyone is equally a unique genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will undoubtedly live the rest of its entire life believing it is stupid, or it is a foolish dunce." So that is one minor factor among, well, it's actually a major, but it's just one of the puzzle pieces of all the rest that you've got to analyze yourself. And then again, you've got to think also regarding credentials and degrees and the like. So I've been conversing with one of my friends that I've been here from high school that has been studying criminal justice. And so I'm not going to name his name because he's pretty tight with me. Like, we go back since first grade. But however, he has mentioned something about religion and the like, and how he has, quote, studied all of it. All of it. So you're basically saying that you have put into as much hermeneutics and ecclesiological hours of your own personal study into all of the Jewish background, the history, the archaeology, every integrating factor in Judaism and Christianity itself. You have studied the works of Flavius Josephus, even apologists and anti-theists, atheists, everyone alike. You have seen the whole big picture, and you're going into criminal studies, and this is still your own studies at this college? Or is it the professor's studies that is being propagated towards you? So this is why, personally, considering the guy from JSU claiming that, quote, I don't have a college degree and all this mumbo jumbo junk. Yes, for me personally, because I really do believe that uneducation is more of a vital factor than traditional education ever was. Now, don't get me wrong, traditional education is vital. I mean, we need to have a broad spectrum, but just what are your personal interests? This is where the standards and prerequisites of modern universities are somewhat twisted, because they have their own professor PhD studies that have been cultivated over time from certain professors. Now, this is why I personally love more of research-oriented universities, such as Cambridge, Oxford, which is actually explaining their current skyrocket level. I mean, because once you think about it, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but compare the University of Cambridge or Oxford to a little Roll Tide school such as Tuscaloosa, or even criminology in North Alabama. And yes, criminology, forensics, and analyzing history. And it's, most of you have already known as apologists, the best book that you could ever come across, J. Warner Wallace, Cold Case Christianity. So that's just another thought to consider. So, and as far as confirmatory bias and all of these skeptic remarks that are coming and being propagated toward us and the rest of America, here's just a little food for thought for you. Yes, you can get into epistemology. You can get into all this actually juicy stuff, but just because you think like my previous part 3 study on knowing people, just because you think of something as a first impression, as in regards to, such as the guy said, creation.com, quote, this website is so biased just because of its name. Okay, so here's my perfect analogy that I've just been revealed to. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but yet the comments will be moderated, just so you know. This is an open forum. So consider economics, consider cash, consider currency and dollar bills themselves. So, okay, basically, this cash, this money is science, per se. This is all of our research and studies on nature, earth, life, knowledge itself. This is money. This is the analogy of science itself. So, if you are asking for science itself. Now keep in mind, this cash is science, whether it is in bills or whether it is in change. So, okay, so since Protestant Christianity is so frowned down upon, we're going to use that as the lesser form of science. So, this Christianity is going to be the change. Evolution, Darwinism, natural selection, all that other good stuff. Well, actually, yes, it is good because it provokes our minds. It makes us think more about things. Even though I view it as negative, it is also pretty vital because it is science itself. It is someone's theory. So consider the scientific method when I'm discussing this topic. So, okay, so now Darwinism and evolution and, all of the secular propagation that is floating around now in modern society. Okay, so that is your bills because you value it so much. But yet when you're asking for science itself, this is why I question why people disregard such low figures when you are asking for money yourself. Consider yourself in your own Eden as a child. You want to know everything, do you not? So consider when you approach your own father and you ask him. This is just a perfect story that I've even heard of the other day, and for me personally, I'm just going with the flow right now. I don't. That explains all of the rabbit trails. But so there was this little boy, and and his dad was just so stressed at his job. The American dream, his sandcastle, so to speak, that he was building, which Casting Crowns gave a perfect analogy on a father and how he should spend time with his children and actually have the balance of the American dream and the heavenly vision. So consider this little boy that one time when his dad was so frustrated, he came home from work and the little boy approached him and he said, Dad, can I have some money, please? He just gets so frustrated, even all the more frustrated and even angry at the time at his own kid, and said, why do you want some money? Don't you realize that we have to buy food for you and all? And he rants on all this kind of stuff. So he frowns and he walks back to his room. Then the next day, he figures out that since his dad works and makes money, he approaches him, and yet again, when he comes home from work the second time, says, "Okay, since how much do you make an hour, Daddy?" And he gets all the more frustrated, and he says, "That's none of your business. You are not an adult like I am." So it depresses him even more, and so he goes back to his room. Now, guys, you remember that these videos have certain time limits, so they're stopping at each and every increment. So that pretty much explains if it cuts out anything, I might have to edit it, I don't know. But so the boy returns to his room the second time. The third time in the same week, he musters up enough courage to ask his father, "Daddy, yes, his dad finally calms down and tells him and says, I was too hard for you. I was too hard on you." So then that same week, he approaches his dad yet again, and he says, "Daddy, can I please have $10? He almost gets manic with discipline this time. He bites his head off and he says, "You go to your room." And he says, because we try to provide for you, we try to let you have enough money to go to school. And this dad in himself is pretty much concerned about his own jar in part one, subconsciously, with his own stress, with his own water that is filling up inside of his brain and his heart and his emotions. So not even realizing how informal and how friendly and how much of a priest he is supposed to be to his own son. So then again, when his dad finally returns to his son's room, they have the most biggest emotional experience one could ever have as a family. And the boy finally asks him, Dad, and he finally gives it to him. And he says, what did you need it for anyway, son? He said, I wanted $10 because I wanted 1 hour with you. And so that really shook the man, and it hit like an anvil falling above his head. Most importantly, his heart. So consider your own money as a child. Return back to your aid and let God, let this creator, so to speak, like I said before, put your mind in neutral. Any bitterness that you might have had, any trust issues, just to study sociology itself, and we're all your mistakes, and probably even mine, some of you locals. But consider that as cash going back to the education standards. So intimacy with the Father, if you were raised in church, if you were pointed at by religious, legalistic Pharisees that said no tattoos, no drinking, no verbal taboo or whatever, that, as by the way, this is cultural, and this is a whole different study on verbalization, the difference between verbal communication and social communication, and all of this abuse with just diction, and how it is so cultural with, quote, vulgar words. But as a minister, I've done away with it. But for a Christian, that is for a later study. A regular Christian, because Paul had said, be all things to all men. And he also had told Timothy, rightly divide the word of truth. So, yeah, that's a whole different epistemic and hermeneutic study. As far as ecclesiology, which is the doctrine of the church, and hermeneutics being interpretation of Scripture and the Bible and the Word of God and the original canon and all that. But like I said, that's a separate study. But anyhow, knowledge. So if you're asking for any money, if you're asking for any cash from your Father, would you, as a child, put yourself back to when you were 2 years old, when you were 5 years old, when you were 3 years old, when you were 7? If you wanted change from your own dad, would you ask for a $10 bill? Or would you ask for 10 ones? Or would you ask for a 5 and 5 ones? Would you ask for $2 in quarters? Would you ask for and the rest in 3 ones and a 5, or 10 gold dollars? Guys, view the whole picture. Please don't be reprobate minded. Be inquisitive, because a questioning mentality is a learning mentality. So if you want to know more, don't look through just these eyes. If your sight is blurry and confused, put on. So all I'm saying is just evaluate your change. Evaluate how much money you have, how much information and knowledge that you have, and how much more you want. How much more you want to know. Because there's a lot more that is explained in the blog and on here. The illusionist, the eye, it may not lie, but don't think for a moment that it cannot be lied to. This is regards to people. This is regards to humanity. This is regards to sociology. This is regards to knowledge, epistemology, everything really. And so what I've been shown, my main problem was hype. I was always excited. I was always wanted to do the next best thing, and was so remorseful about how my own past has taken a toll on me. So